Evening, so it's late, and I'm not going to bother you with some boring administrational stuff, hopefully. My name is Christoph Opitz. I'm coming from Bern, Switzerland, and I'm working as the business owner, digital transformation for the Department of Domestic Services. It is one of the 5 business streams of our department. And today I would like to take you with me on a journey regarding cultural change from top down to lean agile management. 2 words in the sentence are possibly rather unusual for public administration. First, agile and cultural change. 2 things that you might consider as a little bit strange or why. And I would like to give you an insight of what are we doing regarding cultural change, and especially why are we doing that. I also have to apologize a little bit for my voice. Usually it's much nicer, but I'm suffering from a long COVID consequence that results in this voice. So I have to apologize for that. Okay, let's step in. I don't want to bother you with boring theoretical approaches, but just for stepping into the topic, I have to. Just one slide, promised. What is culture? What is the definition of culture? I've searched the web, I've looked into clever books, and all the definitions weren't very sufficient. So what I did is I took all those results and formulated an own definition of culture and cultural change. You can read it on your own. I'm not going to read it out to you. This is not a lecture here. But that is the basis of what we are talking about here. What is the current status quo in Swiss federal administration? You all know this pyramid. It is in the top, the boss, and in the bottom line, it's the employees. We have a classical top-down management in the Swiss federal administration. We have orders, commands, we have really just a really static classical organization form in the general Swiss federal administration. I'm getting told what I have to do. I cannot decide. Knowledge is power, and only the boss knows best, hopefully. Everyone is looking up there. Decisions are made centrically, which means I'm not participating actively, but I'm told what to do. Responsibilities are clear. You have to do that. No one else but you. And we have regulated processes, which means that we really have to stick to certain, formal prescriptions. Rather static structures in the end. We want to get rid of that completely. We don't want that anymore. We want to change. And what lies ahead of you when you want to change? What lies ahead of you? Question. No, even worse. A huge mountain. This is the Eiger Nordwand. It's one of the most complicated mountains in the world to climb. And that is how I consider change. It's difficult, and it's really hard to achieve. Why are we doing that? Why are we climbing that mountain? What's the reason for that? Are we insane? We can say, hey, we can stick to laws. It's established for 50 years, 45 years, whatever. Works for ages. Proof of concept, done. Classic top-down management is a dinosaur. It's not flexible. You're not achieving the goals in a reasonable amount of time, in budget or in quality. That is top-down management from my point of view. Nowadays, we have multi-layered interrelationships with different players on the market, such as vendors, such as other administrational offices, whatever. It's not as simple as it was centuries ago, where you could just say, do it. What is the first conclusion out of that? The first conclusion is managers are not the omniscient oracles who can make all decisions centrally. There is not the one who can take the decision nowadays. I don't believe that. I'm not clever enough for that. Second, complex interdisciplinary collaboration structures require different organizational structures. We cannot work in all old organizational forms if we want to succeed in nowadays challenges. That does not work anymore. And also, you, the guys out there, the companies, do not accept that. There are people who say, no, I don't want to work with public administration. You're too complicated. Do it on your own. And that is what we don't want to listen. Third, we want to activate the knowledge of many, which means we want to engage people. We want to have people contributing with their knowledge to our success. Swarm intelligence. The next generation of people, Generation Z, expects us, senior managers, to enable them, to guide them, to give them ideas how they can achieve. They want to participate. It's not like, okay, like a 16-year-old, hey, do it. Up to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I will come back and check on it. It's like how you do it. Contributing and also showing him the ways how to get to the goal. There are also external drivers for us to undergo that cultural change. What were those, or what are these cultural drivers from the exterior? It's definitely, and you probably have heard that a couple of times today, COVID. Definitely. We've experienced that we could do and put things in place that we could have never done before within weeks that would have taken years of project work before COVID, because we just were told, do it. Here's the money, here are the means, do it, we have to. Because legal orders were there, like you have to go to home office. We had to send a couple of thousand people into home office within weeks. So we had to put that into place. And the nice thing is, we cannot turn the clocks back because the people got accustomed to it. They love it. They like to switch in between the office and the home office because they can adjust their personal life, their needs, to work. So why haven't we done that before, is the question. The proof is there, it works. We are efficient, it works. We do not have failure. It is really working. New life models from Generation Z especially, I'm coming back to Generation Z, make it necessary that we also adopt their habits if we want to be a competitive employer. No one comes to the idea and says, hey, I'm putting you into an office from 8 to 5 these days. It does not work. People expect us to be flexible and to offer a new work model. That's the way it is. And we have an employer branding program in place, and we are actively following those ideas. The rapid development also of cloud communication solutions and platforms such as Teams, Zoom, whatever, don't make it necessary that people are in place in office anymore. We can work remotely from wherever we are. That's also been proven. A lot of people doubted that it would work, but it did. I'm also referring to COVID in this place. It proved that it is working. Digitization in general fosters cultural change in society in the world in an equal measure. It's like that. We are all using in our private lives, and I discussed it a couple of times today, endlessly, without any barriers. We are using it. iTunes, whatever. The crucial question is, can public administration be agile? What do you think? Can we be agile? An honest question to the audience. Can administration be agile? Maybe. Yes, we can. Definitely. Well, in parts. Because agility doesn't make sense everywhere. I quoted Obama because I like that, okay? It is really, it hits it to the point, really down. Because we have launched an agile transformation program late in August 2020. And we started to implement safe, scaled agile framework to completely remodel the way that we are working, which means that we are now working in chapters, that we are having PI plannings, that we are using Scrum, we are having agile teams, coaches, and everything that goes with it. The full set. And for 2 years now, we have experimented, we've suffered, it was painful, but it works. And it works really good. People like it. And it gets more and more efficient from iteration to iteration. Wherever direct proximity to citizens and short distances, especially customer-centric approaches, are necessary, agile methods are reasonable and make sense. But for example, when it comes to a court, it doesn't make sense to have agile laws because you have to rely as a citizen that is a law and it's written down and they can rely on it. Agility in a court, possibly in the velocity of finding or coming to a result, yes, then it makes sense. Using agile tools in a court makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to have agile laws. Agile methods are not useful in all areas of federal or public administration. In support, for example, you mostly know at the beginning of January what you do in December because you have a certain SLA that you have to cover. Doesn't make sense to have PI plannings there, but it makes sense to use agile tools within it. That is what I mean by that. In the end, we have to create added value. It means that we have to be more efficient and more effective than we were before. That is also one focus that we definitely have. We want to be quicker, we want to be more customer-centric, and we want to have more satisfied customers in the end. What are the obstacles in cultural change, in agile cultural change? There are not only the pink clouds out there, like everything is nice and everything is happy. I also want to point out the obstacles that we are facing. The biggest danger is the lack of trust in people. You need to trust people. What I see every day is, especially when we are talking about giving responsibility to people, that there are doubts of the middle management, especially the middle layer of management is a central problem. Like, what? I was in charge for 20 years. Why should I give that away? I want to control. This idea of controlling people has to completely be erased out of the minds. It's a change, it's a paradigm change in thinking that we have to go. And that is something that we are facing as a big problem. That is something that I'm really actively working against. We need to change our way how we think, how we treat people. We need to trust them. If you come to me and say, hey, I'm a good C# developer, I'm not a good C# developer. How should I judge if you're good or not? I read your CV and I have possibly half an hour to create an image of you. I have to trust you. And I find out in the first half year or the first 3 months when you're working for our company, right? And we need more trust. That is what we need. Lack of will to mind change. As I said before, a lot of people don't want to change. They want to stick with old habits. And that's normal. We are all humans. And what works and what doesn't hurt is good. Typical human behavior. Legislation, in parts, is stuck in the Middle Ages. We have laws that are not compatible to our digital world. And somehow, we have a nice new law in Germany. I had to laugh when I read that. You possibly know what I'm talking about. It's the Nachweisgesetz. So you have to print out a working contract and sign it manually and send it via snail mail to the employer. Hell yeah, we are living in 2022. Why? Is that digitization? I doubt that. Lack of sponsorship on part of the company management is also a very big lack that we are facing. If the top management is not sponsoring change, you won't make it. It needs to start from top down, not bottom up. People usually are very open, especially younger people are very open to change. But if the top management is not following that idea of giving up their ideal of management, it's mission impossible. No change budget, change costs. That is something that also a lot of people don't want to hear. You need money. You need trainings, you need sponsorship. You need possibly also to hire additional people to bring a new mindset into the company from the outside. You need to hire trainers, coaches, people who know what they're doing. Therefore, you need money. If you don't have the money, it gets difficult. Resistance within the organization. I also want to talk about that. There are, of course, the informal stakeholders say, oh my God, you have heard that? They are doing this. That is so bad. It was so much better just 2 years ago. That is also a big danger. You need to catch those informal stakeholders and pull them to your side by convincing them, by giving them trust, responsibility. Say, okay, if you know better, here, do it. Challenge them. That's the way you are getting those people. I can continue that endlessly. I will stop at this point, okay? What are the stumbling blocks on the way to agile cultural change in public administration? I give you just a few that I see actively in my all-day life. Public administration depends on politics. And at the point where politics comes into the game, it gets complicated. Because if you are being ignored, if cultural change is not going to happen, if political decisions that are necessary, for example, for changes in legislation, you won't make it. You can have the best ideas. If you don't have the political sponsorship in behind, it also will be very difficult. Switzerland has around about 90 federal different offices. And they are all depending on each other. And if you're having offices that are resisting against the change and are not open to it, it also gets difficult. You have to align to a certain point. And I don't mean just technically alignment, which means like using the same solutions, we're doing that, but in a process way, which means how we work. If there is one organization that works in an agile way and one that works classically top down, it gets difficult because it's not matching. Time. The digital world is not waiting for us. So we are getting overtaken if we are not following. That is something that we also should keep in mind, and we need to catch up because we are running after. That's fact at the moment. Money, reasonable funding, as I said before, is definitely needed. Without the funding, without dedicated budgets for change, for transformation, we are not going to succeed. This is how we see change and how we implement and how one could implement. I call this house of change. Some pillars, like the core values of the company, such as honesty, participation, transparency, are the pillars that are hosting and carrying the change. And you have external influences who are affecting the pillars and who are also affecting the culture. Culture is affected by leadership, by communication, employer branding, for example, just to name a few. The pillars are affected by management sponsoring, resource situation, skill management, risk management. I think you can follow that. It's rather, I think, reasonable. How are we doing our change? I would like to give you also an idea of what we are currently doing to get the people on our side, to convince them that change and agile change is of advantage for them. What I did is I said to my boss, who is member of the board of directors, I said, Jack, I want to have frequent cultural workshops. I want to talk about the pain points. I want to talk about what is hurting the people. And I want to talk first with all business owners and the middle management. And I want to have them all in person in one room, and I want to have groups in which they can work and tell what they don't like, what they like, I wish, I like, I wonder. Okay, we did the first workshop. You know what happened? They were sitting like, oh no, this guy from transformation, no, why I am here? I'm wasting a working day here. We know all that. We have to change. And then I asked, yeah, how do we have to change? And we got into a bilateral discussion. And it was the first honest discussion. We discussed hard within the course of the day. It got more and more intense, and people really came out of their nutshell and started to tell, yeah, I don't like this. And we put it up really down on a wall, wrote it down, and consolidated. And as a result, we used that as the foundation for a second workshop, for a third workshop. And they all had focus topics. Those focus topics were, for example, trust, or, for example, leadership. And the people got more and more involved and interested, and we spread it. We also later invited people from product management. We invited normal employees from all over the organization. And then the picture got more and more precise and detailed. And now we are going to conduct also town halls, which means we have an open mic session in a course of 2 weeks for 1 hour with the director, me, a couple of other guys, agile coaches, and anyone from our department can dial in and ask actively questions. And on the other side, our director, or also me and agile coaches, are answering questions regarding transformation and transformation processes. Nice to meet you is one of my favorite. It is a very informal meeting in the summer outside. We are sponsoring a beer, a wine, water, a soft drink, and we just come out to hang out with the people after work and just talk to each other. No program, just hanging out together. You know what the effect is? People like it. And they say, when's the next one? And what you can do is you can sell transformational stuff inside that event. Works brilliantly. Dialogue Forum, that's the latest addition to our ideas that we are currently following. We established a dialogue forum in form of a personal meeting in such a huge room. We also have huge rooms. And we put the complete department into it. And we create focus tables. Topics related transformation to change. And there is one sponsor at each desk. And then people can come together in groups, no matter, following their interest, what they're interested in. And then they can put their input in there, and we are using it later on in one of the cultural workshops so that the input is a cycle. It's not only top down, like from the management, we are giving information to the people, but the people are giving also information back to us. And we put it into the workshops later on. What lessons do we have learned so far? We've learned a lot of things, painful things. Cultural change is definitely painful, especially if you have an organization such as ours, which was established for 30 plus years. Total stability. No change, nothing. Okay, there were minor changes. There were programs like restructuring and things, but that's normal. But a huge, essential change didn't happen within 30 years. It takes more time than you might think. It's not happening overnight. So we were also talking in different sessions today, like the expectation towards change and digitization, like it has to work tomorrow effectively. That's not the way it is working. We are currently in the second year of our intense journey. 2 years. We are 2 years into it, and now we are feeling that we are succeeding. We are reaching the people, and the people are coming back to us, and we see that also the new ways of work are starting to take part and are taking effect in all-day work. So the BOs, the other BOs from the departments are getting back and saying, okay, now our PI plannings are getting better and better. Because it's about practice and iterations and learning on the job. Not everyone will follow the path of change. You have to accept that. Some people you will never reach. One has to let loose. People need to learn how to enable others. That is also a thing that we've learned. You have to give the people the chance to learn from each other. You might say, yeah, that's normal, that was always happening. No. There are places like ours that it wasn't normal at. Once you started the agile change, you have to be aware that you never will stop it again if you're committed to it. Because agile change means that it goes continuously on and on and on in the next iteration, and in an ideal case, it gets better from iteration to iteration. You need ambassadors for change. You need people who you can enable easily to follow and to also tell others that it is a good idea to follow on that path. You need to find those people, identify them, sponsor them internally, and to take them on your side. This is something that I want to give you before I close my speech. This is the typical change curve. It starts with a big bang, announcement of we are going to change. Then the people say, no, we are not going to change. I won't accept it. And then you get in this deep valley of grief, I call it. Yeah? And here we heard 70 up to 90% of digital transformations are not making it. You might remember it. They stuck here, at the very bottom of the valley. They are not getting ahead this point. But here, when you have doubt, like, oh, it's not coming good, it's not gonna work, you have to encourage the people even more, and you also have to empower yourself more to keep on and move on, because here, if you do so, you reach the point of acceptance. And if you reach the point of acceptance, people start to adopt methodology, adopt a new mindset. And then hopefully you come to the point of problem solving and moving on. So I hope that you could follow my speech and the ideas behind that, because I was not talking about technology. I have not been talking about a product. I have been talking about soft skills of cultural change. And there is There's a very famous brand, because we had also on the other side, in the other session just a couple of minutes ago, we had a lot of famous brands, and I also have a very famous brand for you, which I would like to close with. Just do it. It's worth it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much for you.